Hi, friends. Welcome today. I'm so excited because I have my dear friend Karla here. And Karla is just this awesome, um, possibilities expert, I think is the best way to describe Karla. And she's also, practiced Ayurveda herself and can help you learn what Ayurveda is. And if you don't know what that word means, it's okay. But she's great just with self-care and helping you tune into what your intuition is telling you will really be the thing that helps you the most. And Karla and I share a lot of common beliefs, but also things that we've done that have helped us heal so that we can be the best parents and spouses that we can be, as well as providers. So welcome, Karla. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Kate. That's lovely. Thank you. I received that. Yeah, I love the Ayurvedic self-care. It's really changed my entire life and my family's. So thanks.
Yeah.
Anytime I can make things more simple, that's what I'm looking for. So.
Yeah, so what's happened lately with among my patients, one of the things is that in the last year or two, a lot more people seem to be very aware of what's in their products, what's in their water, what's in their food. And I know there's been a movement in general, to stick with smaller farms, to eat organic, but I think in the last couple of years, it's definitely picked up, at least in our area of the country. And then the flip side of that is there's also a lot of little local companies making skincare products. My friend makes, shampoo bars, and these things are great, but we also have limited funds, and we're in kind of a time when we can't afford all of these little awesome niche products. So I also wanted to talk today about what can we do, where we make our own facial products from the kitchen. And it doesn't have to just be facial products, anything that you use to sort of keep your complexion the way you want it to be or nourish yourself in any way. We would love to hear what you do personally.
Cool. That sounds fun. Well, and it's fun. It's a perfect timing because I was telling Kate, like throughout this COVID, I just felt like my face has been so clear and lovely. And then a couple of days ago, I started with these little breakouts. And so it's a perfect time to talk about it because I think we often think the goal is just perfect, glowing all the time. And now it depends because some people actually do have that. And sometimes we think, oh, they were just gifted. But if we look a little bit to this ancient healing wisdom of Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga, and it's really like life knowledge, and it's about living well. I always look at it as just staying in. I think of it as a little dance of trying to stay in balance. And balance is a moving target, right? So that's why I just say it's a dance every day, just tuning into the body. And a lot of the self-care tools from Ayurveda are about like a daily detox and a daily check-in and learning how to know your body. And I don't think most of us were taught that. Like when we think about self-care, we're still outsourcing our self-care, like at the gym or the trainer or a particular diet that we're supposed to follow. It's not coming from the intuition. Our external products, the spa, this is what we've typically thought of as self-care. And we do talk about journaling, and we do talk about, being with friends as well. But this is sort of the whole body experience of really being, I always think like being in the body. Like there's ways that we can read what's going on in the body without feeling overwhelmed and without moving into a state of judgment, right? So I wake up and I've got these things on my face instead of going, oh, looking in the mirror. And sometimes I can feel myself like, what is that? And if I can just take a moment and go, okay, like, what are you telling me today, skin? Like, what's going on? And if I start to notice, okay, what's been going on in my external life, what's been going on in my internal life, like stress, how I'm relating to it. It is like, what have I been eating as a woman? Where am I in my cycle? And I'm 50 and things are changing in my body. So I'm really tuning into that too. So in general, I like to keep things very simple. And I do play with these tools of Ayurveda, and I can share what I do with face routine. It's pretty simple. And I have 3 kids, 3 daughters. They're 16, 13, and 11. And they all sort of have their own way of dabbling in and out of wanting to take care of their face and skin. So what is lovely is when you can have things in your home that they can play with. And they kind of like to be these little alchemists sometimes. So most of everything I use comes from my kitchen, like something that I would have in my kitchen. And that's been something I've been working with a lot of my clients when we're looking to tune into the body more. We are looking at how, like, what toxins am I putting on my body, in my body? And when you start to notice one thing, which is probably what your patients are experiencing, all of a sudden you go, ah, and you start to notice this and that.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel overwhelming. And I just say, pick one thing and then you'll know when the next one leads you. So using natural face care products for me from home was sort of an evolutionary process. It was sort of replacing one thing and testing it out and then replacing another. And then soon just starting to realize, oh my gosh, there's more money in my pocket because I'm not spending all this money on these things. From the Ayurvedic perspective, and sorry, I'm not always so linear. And so that
No,
can
you're
be
good.
challenging for people. I won't apologize for being that, but I know that's not everybody functions in that way. So just the basic line of Ayurveda is we look at it like everything has 5 elements in it: air, ether, water, earth, fire, right? Everything around us and inside. So I always feel like our inner ecosystem usually wants to kind of sync up with the outer ecosystem. So we can talk about that in terms of rhythms. You know, we have annual rhythms, seasonal rhythms, monthly rhythms, and daily rhythms, and life rhythms as well. So like what stage of life you're in. I mentioned I'm 50 and things in my, like my rhythm are changing, my rhythms. And so all these 5 elements also come together to make 3 forces of nature, like energetic forces. I don't know if you've talked about this with your patients much, but, and so they're predominantly, like one is predominantly fire, one is predominantly earth with water, and the other is predominantly air, right? Air or space together. And so just knowing that, and if you, I don't know if you ever introduce a dosha quiz, they're fun to do. You can find out kind of like your constitution and what elements are more predominant within you. However, I always say take it with awareness. It's just a tool to use, because sometimes people get their quiz back and they go, oh, I have to be doing this and this and this, and I shouldn't be doing that and that and that. No. Like, you are also unique. And that's why I say, like, we can dance with some of these things and play and experiment. And you know what? If we're not experimenting with a $40 product from a store all the time, but we're experimenting with very little money in our kitchen and our bathroom, it can happen more easily and create less stress. So what one might put on their face, it depends, you know, because you're unique. And so you do have to be willing to maybe play a little bit, but you can keep it simple. One thing that Ayurveda, the Ayurvedic wisdom says is like, okay, oil and water, and you've probably talked about this with your patients, maybe, about toxins. So oil and water, the reason I slowly stopped using any lotions or a lot of these face products is most of them have chemicals in them, right? And even if we're talking about a lotion, oil and water don't mix. So then you have to add an emulsifier. When you add the emulsifier to help them come together, now you have to add something for the shelf life. And then you have to add, you know, like you start adding all these things in. So even some of our very simple products on a shelf in a store will have some toxins. Is that better than one with 20 different ingredients? Heck yeah. Like, if that's where you are, go there. But if you want to simplify even more, like around here, each one of my kids sort of has their own bottle, and I recycle bottles too. And I work with essential oils. Like this one is just a jojoba oil with lavender and frankincense. Oil can be naturally cleansing to the skin as well. Now, if you have a lot of air and ether, like I do, you like the qualities of that tendency would be that I'm a little bit thinner in my frame. Like my skin can dry easily. Women and men, but if we have more of that element, we might find more wrinkles earlier. And so my skin likes things like milk and honey and oils in general. Okay. And again, it depends on the season. It depends on what's going on in your life. For someone who has more pitta, look at Kate, she's fiery, she's got red hair, just in their skin. And they're like in the skin, what the things that you might tend to more are feeling heat on the face or red or rashes, you know, even the way that acne might show up is going to be very different in these qualities. And then for someone who has a lot of the earth energy, this kapha energy, these are the kind of people who are like, yeah, life is good. They, you know, like they don't stress out too much. So their skin also will typically sort of naturally have that suppleness, right? And so they may not require a lot of oil. It might be just a really light oil. And this is just something to experiment with, right? Like you put something on your face and you're like, I don't like that, you know, and it feels so thick. All right, well, then you just move up to a lighter oil. Some people might put an oil on and go, it just evaporated. Well, you might need something a little bit thicker. Is this where you wanted me to go?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Okay.
sense. I was also thinking, because so many people I see have thyroid issues, what I find personally with my thyroid is sometimes the first way I know I'm not well treated or I'm not caring for myself very well with my thyroid is actually because my skin gets so dry. It almost feels like there's chunks of it that I haven't been able to exfoliate naturally. So in that case, I kind of have a trick which I can share too, but I kind of wanted you to go through, yeah.
Sure.
What
So around here, it does vary a little bit, but the things that I go to the most, and some people can do this daily, and some people do it a couple times a week, and some people do it once. It's a very gentle mask, and I store in here chickpea flour or garbanzo flour with a pinch, which you can just get at any grocery store now. I get an organic one, and you just put a little pinch of turmeric, which is great for anti-inflammation, which is something I never really needed in the past, but now going like kind of perimenopause, you know, I'm noticing more heat through the skin. And I definitely notice it at certain times of my cycle. And even working with others, you know, like Rachel and whatnot, and you just sort of tuning in, like the ovaries have. So although my skin is dry and has more air element, the congestion part is in the ovaries. So I tend to get these breakouts where in certain parts of the skin.
Yeah.
I won't go in there. Rachel's much better at that than I. But I take this, and maybe it just depends. Like you can take anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon of the powder, and I mix it up. Oh, I actually brought it from this morning. And I mix it in here. And today I mixed mine with a little honey. So because my skin, chickpea flour could feel drying. Like if you have more oil, which might be a more fire. Yeah. If you notice that your skin has more oil or the kapha, the earth energy, then you might just do water and mix that up, right? If you're an essential oil user, you can add essential oils to that. I'm very cautious about the quality of essential oils and just keeping them gentle, maybe testing them on part of the skin first, because if you have any other things, but you really don't have to have them in. I do use essential oils almost always in my oil bottles, but there's more to mix, right? Like a carrier oil. Here, if I'm just taking a small amount, like that's a pretty potent oil for a tiny amount. So you could mix it up and put it in the fridge, a bigger batch, and keep it in the fridge. But then I just put that on the face. So either oil or I have honey in there. If you have real dry spots, you could even put a little hint of your favorite oil. Maybe it's coconut, maybe it's jojoba, maybe it's almond, sunflower, you know, and you kind of have to tweak it a little bit. In general, kaphas, like if you have sort of the supple skin that, you know, maybe you have breakouts, but you don't have a lot of skin issues, and you always just kind of look like you're chill and relaxed and radiant, then you may be using like sunflower, something that's very light. You may have some other recommendations. That's one of my favorite for light. With the more fire energy or oily, then you're going to be probably moving into like coconut can be great, or some clients like almond.
Where would avocado fit? Would avocado?
Avocado is probably good for someone like me because it's thick. Well, it is thinner, but it's got the fats in
The
it,
fat.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm someone who actually, I don't eat a lot of meat, but I eat bone broth to like get it on me. I just went through a detox. I know many of your patients are going through a detox. And the purpose for me was to detox much more of the emotions. It was less about food, but I started eating more liquids in my diet. And it was important for me to think about how am I still getting the good fats in? So like I was doing a lot of ghee, and I was doing bone broth and avocados, soaking my nuts to make them easier to digest, which I know sounds like high maintenance, but it really isn't. And actually, if you have kids, they kind of like the process of popping the nuts out of the shells. But looking for ways to get, more density even through the liquid diet. So on the face, an avocado would be more of the fat,
Mm-hmm.
nourishing the dry skin.
And what about olive oil? That was the other one I thought of.
I am not a lover of olive oil, but there are some people who can really use it.
Okay.
I find it greasier, and it's thicker. It also stains all my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 girls, 2 of whom we grew our family through birth and adoption. My youngest 2 were born in Ethiopia. And from day one of meeting them, I was just sort of putting oils and butters on their skin as I was guided by my friends. And it took me a long time to realize, like, why am I not doing this for myself too? Because I was realizing how nourishing it was for their skin, how relaxing it was for them. And it was such a connective tool. So really, when we're doing our own facial care or our own body care, like we're connecting to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a little tangent, but no, it's all connected. So anyway, back to this. So mixing it up, putting it on the face. You know what, if you don't have all this and you have drier skin, you can just experiment with honey. Like just take honey and you put it on your face. And a fun way to do it is just keep doing this, and it'll get really sticky and you'll feel your skin come up. It's almost like an exfoliator, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just keep doing this. Like you could do it for 5, 10, longer, and then you rinse it with warm water.
Mm-hmm.
After that, and then a lot of times I do that in the morning, and then I'm also putting oil on my body. I'm taking my shower, rinsing everything off in the shower, coming out, rose water. Okay, I just put it in this little bottle.
I've had rose water here in this big
yeah.
bottle to show too. This
Yes.
lasts forever.
It's that in here. It just doesn't have a sprayer. And actually, it's fun.
Yeah.
So when you leave things like this out, if you have kids, just let them see you use it. Don't direct them, because usually they will not do it if you direct them to. But you can just, they'll be like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm putting rose water on my face. It just really refreshes it.
Mm-hmm.
And I start seeing them using rose water. Like they've seen me do these things and now they're starting to do them. And then at the end, what I said before is just a light oil. And that will depend. Like there's times like I barely want any oil on my face, and especially if I'm using the cleanser, like, or just the nourishment that has honey or any oil in it, I might find that that's enough. Everything feels smooth already.
Mm-hmm.
But at night, using the oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was awesome. I want to kind of get your opinion. Yeah,
I'll tell you too, like for this, like when I do get little blemishes, again, there's so many reasons that you could be getting blemishes. So don't judge. One thing you can do, there's a couple things you can do that are just not product related. I'm also work with a lot of energy tools, energetic exercises, just how we are more than the physical matter or energy. Questions can open up possibilities, right? So like, wow, that's really interesting. What else is possible here? And just asking like, body, what are you aware of? Not trying to figure it out in your head in that moment, but as you go out in the day, you might just find that something comes to you and you're like, oh, maybe I should do that recipe someone told me about. Oh, maybe Kate has an idea. Oh, maybe something will come. But I do like to keep frankincense around, and I'll just use a little spot. And what's the other thing? Oh, neem. I don't have neem here, but neem can be really great for that. It smells. My kids hate neem. They hate it when I bring it out, but there's a little blemish, I'll be using it.
Yeah. You mentioned turmeric. So I also wanted to bring up that I have used turmeric when my teeth start to look yellow. And it sounds kind of silly because turmeric is yellow, but it actually does work to whiten the teeth. And the other thing I wanted to show, oh, I think I left it in the bathroom, but I do have a little charcoal, like a little just container of charcoal that I use on my teeth sometimes when I just feel like I want them to be whiter. But for me, when I go to the dentist and they offer me the like fancy whitening process, number one, I don't want to spend money on that. Number two, I have really sensitive teeth already where hot and cold really bother my teeth. And so I'm concerned that like a whitening process that has chemicals and junk in it to kind of strip the enamel would actually make my teeth more sensitive. So I have found that either turmeric or charcoal on my teeth is really nice. And after the charcoal, they feel like I was just at the dentist. Like they just feel so nice. So
Yeah. And do you ever do oil pulling?
I used to. You know what I've found lately is that I'm so busy, and that's by choice, obviously, that things that I used to do that took more like 10-15 minutes, I'm not doing right now.
Mm.
So I think it's just a phase.
And even, again, everything's optional, and some of these things will come and go. And what I always feel is like our self-care is something that should leave us feeling nourished tomorrow. Like every day, like if you're measuring tool, whenever you're looking to make habit changes or just bring things into your self-care routine, if it's making you feel bad, it's not the right thing. Like go find something else. Like it shouldn't be about you should do it. I just use should to say that, that's funny. But not the should, but kind of feel yourself being drawn into something. And sometimes we just have to scale it back and make it super simple.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes there is a time to just do something. And that's when you call in a buddy or you have someone text you and remind you in a lovingly way. You find people who won't be judgmental, who won't be snarky, who can just hold you in that space. Like sometimes for my clients, when we're looking at what will help you put something in place, it's that. And I just I sit on my phone and I send it, just like it takes me, 20 seconds. I send a text and that's the reminder, for a little while, or they set a reminder on their phone, and we start moving into the place where self-care becomes habitual, the same way brushing your teeth is, but some of these other things about choosing non-toxic products will start somewhere. Like usually if we start really big, that's when it's really hard to keep up. So even if you're going to oil pull, which is just the process of putting oil in your mouth and swishing it around, there's different opinions about it. My experience was lovely. I had always had a lot of sensitive teeth, and I've had a few root canals, and my gums would hurt a little bit. And I started pulling, and don't spit it in the sink. You want to spit, if you do swish around just for a little while, you just want to spit it in your trash. I know some people who have a special garden and they go spit the oil outside too. It has benefits for different people. It is part of a detox program for many. There are some people who do not advocate for it, and that's totally fine. So make an informed decision for yourself, or try it and see. It, like all those things, it makes my mouth, I guess I'll say, like, I just have a pain-free mouth when I'm doing it. And it can also brighten the teeth. I've made little mixtures. I don't have one here, but I've made them in bottles like this. Again, my youngest daughters who were adopted, one really struggled with some things, dental issues that the dentist didn't really know. Even my dentist from India who traveled and done all these things, she's like, well, I'm assuming it's an early malnourishment, but we just can't, we'll see. She might grow out of this, because sometimes those things are chemistry in the body. But I mixed a little bottle with some essential oils, and I can't remember offhand, I think it had sesame, which has healing properties itself, and she would just rub it on her teeth. And I did it too. I did it with her, and I found my gums were feeling less sensitive, and her her whole mouth was changing. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Reclaiming Center, the 4-week program that you're doing, because I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So thank you. Reclaiming Center is something that just sort of came to me as usually when I'm I do coaching, facilitation, and energy work, one-on-one workshops, and group coaching. And in the last probably year almost, most of my clients that have come to me have been going through some real big events in life transitions, anything from a diagnosis to a divorce to caring for parents to working with children. I do work with adoptive and foster families as they're navigating those changes. Just many things happening, and it's often not just one. And they're starting to realize they want to take better care of themselves, but not quite sure how. And they're also getting the sense that this is just more than physical, like it's a whole mind, body, spirit, energy. And that's kind of where I come in. And this piece, Reclaiming Center, is just 4 weeks. Usually I work with people in a longer program around Ayurvedic self-care. But these 4 weeks are really about the very simple foundation of how we access the resources within. So all of self-care, which can even be a triggering word for people. It used to be for me. I was like, self-care is just for people that have money, and this is the way they think it. Like there's a lot of judgment in what it looked like or didn't. Mm-hmm. So there's no self-love in that kind of self-care. Like there's a lot of judgment. And if we can begin some simple practices, and they do include breath, they do include presence. I've done a lot of trauma-informed work. So some of the work of I'm not trained in somatic experiencing, but I've read and studied a lot with Peter Levine and worked under some of his students, and Bessel van de Kolk. Just how do we really begin to know our body and compassionately sort of realize that sometimes the way that we responded or the ways that we feel stuck are physiology. Sometimes we think like, I should have, I could have, I should, we're making it up here. And sometimes our body has just done things. We've done things as part of survival, and it's okay, And I think that right now with the virus, everyone's experiencing this differently, right? The contexts are extremely different. And that's not just, from one country to the next, one race to the next, one culture to the next. I'm seeing that interstates too. I have friends who've had family members die. I have 2 friends in recovery right now. I have some people coming out and emerging into the world already, and some who are just like not for a very long time. I think that we're getting close to the emergence, right? Some people are already, and that can also be triggering. It can feel stressful. Mm-hmm. So how do we resource from within to know what we want to choose, how we're going to do this, to not compare in that, and really nourish the nervous system, nourish the body. It won't be a lot like if conversations come up about food, that may be there, but I do believe that we could be eating the most pristine diet, which I have done from time to time, and still it doesn't matter. If the emotions, Ayurveda talks about ama is that which cannot be digested, all right? And it's not just our food, it's our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and our life experiences. So it's really like a deep dive into 4 weeks of just digesting and knowing that we have the capacity and we have the resources. And when things feel really big and deep, some of my clients are also working with a licensed therapist. They are also working with a somatic experiencing body worker or therapist. They might also be working with you or someone else. But this is like the day-to-day, moment. How do I access the resources within? You can find out more at discoveryourcenter.com.
Discoveryourcenter.com. I will make sure I put it in the comments too. And something I was thinking as you were describing the 4 weeks is I went to Sprouts, the grocery store, a couple days ago. And when I pulled in, I thought, wow, I know what PTSD feels like. I know what trauma feels like. And somehow the grocery store for many people has become a trigger. Like I looked around and everyone looked stressed.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this place used to be a really enjoyable place to be. And the people that work there were always lovely. And I was like, you know what? Part of the challenge for me with COVID, and I've seen this in patients too, which is why I'm bringing it up, has been the unknown. Like I do great when I have all the scientific information, but if I don't, it's like a little bit of a free fall. And I realized one day I thought, well, Kate, what do you think you need to take right now so that you can like be in the world or see patients, or what do you need? And I just kept thinking of my zinc and my selenium. And interestingly, I was talking to one of my mentors yesterday, and he kept kind of pointing out, like, he really thinks some of this, from all of the data that he can possibly gather with who's been getting the virus versus who's been sort of non-symptomatic, has been like some genetics combined with some nutrients, right? Like, so, but also stress level and sleep and all of these other things. And so it was really interesting because he's a very scientific person, but he also felt like each person really needs to pause long enough to tune in to, like, what do I need? What am I missing? And one thing we've been working on with our food detox has just been colors. Like, are you getting all the colors? And that helps us know if we're getting all of the nutrients. But yeah, all that to say, I made this decision right then to be okay with the unknown before I walk into the store.
Yeah.
And to smile. And like when I was checking out, I even said to the cashier, I know you can't tell, but I'm smiling because I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Like, well, everything is so unknown, right? And we're living in the face of uncertainty. And if you've gone through big life transitions before, you know that's what life transitions bring up. Like it just feels like unknown. It feels uncertain. And sometimes we want to try control, but we can't, or we want to figure it out up here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, how much can we resource from within here?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, that experience of the grocery store, because I'm experiencing it too, the nervous system, which could be a whole nother day that we chat. And I'm not a nervous system expert, but I study a lot because it helps me, it helps my kids. And I'm a geek that way. And it really helps my clients.
Yep.
But because I've really seen a lot of my own healing and wellness, and my kids, and in particular, actually all three of my kids, like the post-adoption period was really intense. And I just sort of had this sense, like the nervous systems were all over the place. Like, and so we were looking at how to connect, how to attach, how to feel grounded, how to feel safe, right? Not just my two daughters, but all of us. Like, how are we doing that as a family? So, when I used to teach yoga years ago, it used to be talking about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And what we now know from the polyvagal theory is that it's much more complicated than that. I'm not going to claim to know everything about it or be an expert. But what has become very real and true for me is this part of the nervous system that is also the social nervous system, which is really about our belonging, our need to belong. And, we kind of function from there. So like, do we feel safe? Or do we feel threat in places? And part of the way that we perceive, like our nervous system registers things, is through the face and the neck, right? Mm-hmm. And down further. But like what we're experiencing is like when we can't see, this is why kids can be so scared of masks, right? Like they can't see things. All we see is the eye. We're not seeing all of these expressions through here. So yeah, we go into the grocery store and we're already feeling like we're isolated and we're craving people, or we're craving connection. And then we sort of see just eyes. You can't see the rest. So just having that awareness is one thing. Like, I love that you check in before you go in, and like whatever you do to help you be in the body and to feel, those resources within, or more relaxed. And maybe when you come back out again, like I've noticed too, like I'm usually sitting in the car for a moment before I go in, and then I'm coming back out. Mm-hmm. We do most of our shopping at farmers right now, like some of the farmers. I live in North Durham.
Yeah.
And that's been really great. My husband has cancer. So we really have quarantined ourselves and been sheltering in place. I'm the only one who goes out anywhere. And when I have, just taking those precautions. But the first couple times I came back and told my family, okay, that was the strangest feeling. Like I felt fear, like I could feel it all.
Yes.
And, how much of this is mine and how much is this just what we sense as energetic beings, as human beings.
Yeah. And just to come full circle as we close, you mentioned the facial expressions. And I realized when I started yoga, like about, I was looking at pictures recently and realized it's about 10 years from like when I went to my first real yoga class. So it felt like a milestone for me. But was that one thing is I noticed when I was clenching my jaw, I noticed when I was stressed, I noticed what my tongue was doing because my teacher was really good at reminding me. And growing up, I saw my mom always would kind of tense her facial muscles without realizing it. And I think it's really common for women, especially. And then when they ask me, you know, for like a wrinkle cream or a magic potion for wrinkles, I'm thinking, oh, I actually think yoga would help more. Or just, it doesn't have to be like a crazy long class, just a little bit of awareness of what are we doing with our face. Because we often don't realize, and maybe now is better than it used to be because there's always photos being taken. So you can look at the end of the day and see, oh, my face was more clenched than I realized.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you noticed that too, where like during yoga, you were able to actually fully relax your face too.
Oh, totally. I used to be such a jaw clencher. I had like, in fact, I even would break some of the, whatever they call the mouth guards.
Yes. Yes.
And I have none of that. I don't use a mouth guard anymore. And this is where oiling can really help. So oil has so many benefits, right? Not the swishing oil, but like really putting it on your skin and just massaging. So many benefits for the nervous system, for the skin, for relaxing. And I'm always just sort of tuned into how things are working with my nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it making me feel more wired, or is it making me feel relaxed? And I do want to say, like, there's a part of like the nervous system when it's really healthy, like has everything in it, like it's balanced. Like even the fight energy, we need some healthy aggression in our lives to advocate for ourselves, to speak our voice.
Yeah.
And, you know, to know when to rest and digest. But I actually got stuck, you know, into a freeze state, like shortly
Mm-hmm.
after, like, you know, just sort of like letting myself be there, and then kind of got stuck. Like I also needed more activation. All right. So this is where we're always looking at the balance of things. Like we exercise and we sit still and we, you know, like do the same way, like our cycles, like there are these cycles, and how are we pulsing between these things to find harmony? But you can oil the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also just like when you're oiling your face or massaging or even whatever you're doing, or even no anything, just your bare hands. You know, I like to pinch the eyebrows gently
Yeah.
along here. You know, there's a little point right at the side of the eye, and you just
Mm-hmm.
gently, you can get some of these sinus pressure points in here. If you've ever done tapping a lot, it's funny, a lot of these points are tapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Push underneath, you know, even behind the ears and just in front of the ears. And it's really relaxing, especially if you do this before bed, for the jaw. But yoga, I mean, yoga was my entry point. And then when I was in my teacher training, my teacher was from India. And so this is just her lifestyle growing up. And she introduced Ayurveda, and it really spoke to me. And it spoke to me at that time that my health was really, like, I was being called in for blood work every 2 weeks because my blood count was completely off, but they couldn't figure out what. It was a struggle to get a deep breath. And I was a yoga teacher. And it was, you know, what else? My hormones were really off. And everybody thought on the external surface, like I looked calm, but I was really just shut down.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could function and I was showing up for everybody, but on inside, I just sort of felt wired and really tired.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I thought that I was so alone. And now that I began to realize I can't be alone. And this is why I work with a lot of women, because I work with women who have really successful lives, you know, and careers a lot of the time. And it's like, there is no one thing that we can know or perceive about anyone at all. Like, and I'm discovering so often, you know, our nervous system is a big part of that. And so we may be functioning more in a state of freeze, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it shows up differently for all people. I won't go there. That's a little bit more than what I wanted to do today. But there are tools that we can just sort of I feel like it's coming back to the body, and just really knowing that it is that like you are inherently whole. And how do we function from that place? And how do we repair or regulate, like whatever the word is, replenish, like we just start to bring things back into rhythm, right?
Yeah. I love how often you use the word balance, because
Mm.
that's something that we keep trying to say in our detox is like, it's really about balance. This is not at all about someone else telling you what you should do. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
I think we should plan a time to do like I'm trying to think of the way to say it, but a workshop or a lifestyle class on the nervous system and on the polyvagal theory, but more actually on how we've walked the walk and what we've used with our families. Because I don't think it has to be perfect. And I think, like you said, the evolution is the most important part. And that's actually what I try to, give to people when I talk about food is like, look, it took me 8 years to get here. I am not suggesting that you eat, clean every meal every day for the rest of your life. I'm actually suggesting that it's more of a pattern and a pulse and a path, so that
Yeah.
really resonates. Yep.
Yeah, that could be really fun. And, it is so different for everyone. And what I found, like for me, I was always seeking how to help my kids be healthy. When I realized it's like, oh, the more that I'm taking care of myself and kind of feeling like I have a rhythm and am feeling rested, like I'm digesting life, I can access sort of an energy that is deeper than the surfaced, caffeine. I still love coffee. My grandparents were Dutch and I was drinking coffee at 10 and my kids are Ethiopian and we've done coffee ceremonies and I've, worked in Argentina and like, I've been around a lot of really good coffee. But even in that, like we can tweak it and work with that balance. But if I'm reaching for the caffeine or the chocolate, or even if, sometimes in work, like that, like whatever happens in work that gets you really excited, we can get almost addicted to those things. And that is the superficial energy source that will not be sustainable in the long run. What we need is to get into the deeper. And there's so many ways to do that, right? I just did a 5-day meditation a couple weeks ago, and that was part of it. Like just dropping into the deeper source. But there's so many ways that we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we should talk about, what we, on a deeper level, like what's important to us, and do we act in a way where our routines or the things we spend time on equal the things that are important to us? And that's kind of that's like a workshop-y thing, but yeah, let's talk.
And like, what's the motive? Like if,
sorry,
to have love, like to be accessing or embodying that self-love. And what do you do when you just don't feel it? Like, and you don't feel it. And instead of moving into judgment of that, how do you just be honest and real with that? Like, okay, I'm so not in a place of self-love right now, and that's okay. And I am still going to take this oil and I'm going to put it on my body. I'm going to take this bath. I'm going to go step outside. I'm going to take 5 breaths. I'm going to take, 2 breaths before responding to my child who's just asked the same thing for the 87th time today. Like it really is. And the more that we start to do this for ourselves, we find that we have the capacity to hold the space. I always feel like we're just being the space that maybe our kids or, many of the clients that I work with and you work with are showing up big in the community and in the world. And so how do they show up for those people as well?
Yeah.
And can I just say that none of us have ever gone through a pandemic before. So you're doing really great.
Yes, totally.
Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, it's enough. You're doing great. Like, can we function from the space of enoughness and still like lean into, how could this be easier? How could this be more easeful? How could I experience more freedom?
I'm finding some people I'm talking to that are seeing the positives of it. Like they're noticing every day that they have more time to process things, or that they were running away from things that are now sinking in. They almost feel guilty when they tell me that. And I'm like, no. It's okay to, whatever you're noticing is what you're noticing. And to be honest, right now, there's so much time in these days. I think it can be a roller coaster. Even each and every day can be a roller coaster. You can do great.
Every hour can be a roller coaster. It really can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, Karla. Well, thanks for sharing some of your tips. And I look forward to planning another conversation soon. And
Yeah.
if anyone who's watching this wants to know more about Reclaiming Center and this 4-week program, they can hop on your website, Discover Your Center. And do you have a way that you'd like people to email you if they have questions?
Sure. You can go Karla@discoveryourcenter.com. And I also have a Facebook page. It's Discover Your Center with Karla, Karla. And I do one-on-one work too. Sometimes people are just like, I love the group and I just know that this is what I want to be addressing. And so I do that as well. I've kind of scaled back. All 3 of my kids in 3 different schools are at home now. I've scaled back some of my one-on-one work, but I have 2 clients that are phasing out, so I'll have space for 2.
Yeah.
And
can you do access bars over Zoom or not really?
well, that's a great question. No, it really is a hands-on. However, there's so much about the energy of access bars, which is an energetic, like a light touch, hands-on, that I use a lot of other tools from that body of work to clear the stuff that gets in the way. Like when I'm working with someone, like really, it's often not about what what you want to do or where you want to get. Like, and once we kind of hone in on the desire, okay. So then it's like, how do we actually implement and integrate these things? And that's when the limiting beliefs, the patterns, some of them that you created in this lifetime, some that may be generational, can be really right there. And so we can use the energetic exercises to move through that. And, when back in hands-on world, sometimes that's something that's combined, but we also do it through the energy of everything I do, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so individualized that it's almost hard to describe it in a general way. So I think people should just reach out to you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that I do feel like there are some basic principles from ancient wisdom, like about falling into rhythm, but each one of us is unique, and wherever we are in the path, and we're right where we need to be. Everything happened the way that it happened because it did, and now what?
Yeah.
What else is possible?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's end there. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your girls.